Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Built Heritage Committee meeting of June 9th, 2026. I'd like to call the members to order. This hybrid meeting is being facilitated through Zoom and is being held on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, the original custodians of the unceded land in which the city of Ottawa is located. We extend our respect to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Since this meeting of this committee is being streamed live on the Ottawa City Council YouTube channel, I'd like to remind participants to please keep your microphones muted until I call upon you to speak. For those participating here in the committee room, please use the microphone in front of you and keep your computer muted. I will provide each committee member with the opportunity to ask questions or comment on each item in the order in which they raise their hand in Zoom. For panelists, the raise hand option is found at the bottom of the participants list. For those calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. The committee coordinator and I will be watching for those cues. Members are also reminded to submit any motions, visual supports, or declarations of interest in writing to the coordinator at their earliest opportunity. Although the deadlines have passed for residents to register to speak at committee, they still can provide written submissions to this committee and make written submissions to council. If you have any technical difficulties, please ensure that you contact the committee coordinator. A reminder that if participants are having technical issues with their Zoom connection, they may call in using the backup telephone number provided by the coordinator. I have received regrets from Vice Chair Plante, from Councillor Kelly, as well as Member Legault. At this point, can we call the roll?
Councillor Kelly, Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Troster.
Here.
Member Barnes.
Present.
Member Legault, Member Madigan.
Here.
Member Quinn.
Present.
Vice Chair Plante and Chair King.
Here.
You have quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Are the minutes of the Built Heritage meeting for April 14th confirmed? Confirmed. Thank you so much. So I will proceed with a consent agenda this morning. The first item is heritage permit for 275 Hillcrest Road. That will be held as there is a delegation. The next item is designation of 5 properties designated by James Strutt. That will also be held as there are delegations. The next item, 4.3, designation of 60 Fairmont Avenue under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. We did receive correspondence on this item from Heritage Ottawa. We do have Heritage Ottawa registered as a delegation. Just wanted to determine whether the delegate would want to appear before committee if it was the will of committee to move this motion. Okay, so we will hold that item. The next item is McDonald Garden Park Heritage Conservation District feasibility study. We have correspondence on this item, but no delegations. Is it the will of committee to hold this item for a presentation? Seeing none. Are the report recommendations carried? Carried. Thank you so much. The next item is updates to Built Heritage financial incentive programs. We have received correspondence on this item, but there are no delegations registered. Is it the will of committee to hold this specific item?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure. Councillor Troster wants to ask a quick question of staff on this item, and I think if it's quick, we'll.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just wanted, so I noticed in the report you mentioned the intention is any of the money that was previously allocated to Centertown alone would still be held in trust for Centertown alone, but then on a go-forward basis, the program would make the Heritage Facade Improvement Program available to more urban neighborhoods. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor. We would exhaust the existing budget that we have for Centertown, and then presuming that there are future budget allocations to the program, it would apply to the expanded area.
Okay, and just to be clear, it looks like only half of the allocated amount was actually applied for and spent, correct?
At this point, yes, but we
Okay.
have several more applications in the works.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. I really want to thank staff for their hard work on this update and for the direction that we're going with greater investments into our financial incentive programs. Is this item carried? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Member Bourne, sorry about that.
I just wanted to ask what level 3 is. I know level 1 is a designated property, level 2 is a contributing property. Level 4 is doesn't contribute in any way. What's a level 3?
Through you, Mr. Chair, do you mean in a heritage conservation district as outlined in the report?
Yes.
So in some of our older heritage conservation districts where they haven't been updated to contributing and non-contributing yet, categories 1, 2, and 3 are typically historic buildings that would qualify for the grant program, and category 4 are sort of those buildings that today we would call non-contributing. We've just included these as because they still exist as categorizations in some of our heritage conservation districts.
What is category 3?
In the previous, when many of these heritage conservation districts were designated in the 1980s and 90s, properties were scored using a numerical scoring system, and then that numerical scoring system was aligned with various categories. So hypothetically, and this is, I'm just picking numbers out of air right now because I don't have it in front of me, but if you were an 80 and above, 80 to 100, you might be a category 1. If you were 60 to 80, you might be a category 2. If you were 50 to 60, you might be a category 3. Those 3 categories have now been grouped together with a more values-based approach that we take in heritage conservation today to be considered contributing to the overall cultural heritage value of a district.
I noticed the requirement is that to apply for a grant, you have to be a category 1, 2, or 3 building. I guess the question is category 3 worthwhile? Given that there are limited funds, and that's the question.
In staff's opinion, yes, they are worthwhile. I think, you know, the rubric that's been proposed through this report will help us evaluate, you know, the amount of cultural heritage value, cultural heritage attributes that remain on the building, the work that might be required, the contributions that that work would make to the overall heritage program. So I think, you know, the higher category buildings may rank higher in the evaluation, but all of these buildings staff suggest are worthwhile in conserving.
Would you replace or contribute towards replacing a deck that is non-contributing, you know, that has been updated since?
That would be a non-eligible project.
So you would not contribute?
Correct.
Thank you. Is this item carried? Carried, thank you so much. The next item is 4.6, update to the Bank Street Heritage Conservation District adopting a new HCD plan. We will hold that item for a presentation. And our final substantive item on our regular agenda is 4.7, designation of the Golden Triangle Heritage Conservation District under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Delegations that had been registered to speak have been informed that this item will be deferred to the Built Heritage Committee meeting of Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. Correspondence that was received from this item will be saved to the SharePoint folder for the Built Heritage Committee meeting of Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. We do have a motion to defer, and I will ask Councillor Leeper to move that motion at this time.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas the report recommends the designation of the Golden Triangle HCD and the adoption of the Golden Triangle HCD plan, and whereas Section 41(1)(7) of the Ontario Heritage Act requires a public meeting in advance of a council passing a bylaw to adopt a Heritage Conservation District plan, and whereas Section 41(1)(8) of the Ontario Heritage Act requires that the city provide at least 20 days in advance of the public meeting, and whereas notice was not received by some property owners by the expected date due to a statutory holiday, and whereas the City of Ottawa wants to ensure transparency and adequate opportunities for public input on the proposed Heritage Conservation District, therefore be it resolved that consideration of the report be deferred to the July 14th, 2026 Built Heritage Committee meeting to allow time for a new public notice to be provided to property owners within the proposed HCD.
Thank you so much. Is the motion carried? Carried. So this report will return to the Built Heritage Committee for its meeting of Tuesday, July 14th. So now we go back to our first item that has been held, 4.1 Heritage Permit for 275 Hillcrest Road. I'll ask staff to proceed with a presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This heritage permit application is for demolition and new construction of a single detached house. The property at 275 Hillcrest Road is designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act as part of the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. 275 Hillcrest Road is a Grade 2 property. I'll just wait for the slides to come up.
And we are just working through some technical difficulties here. We expect to have the presentation up online momentarily. Excellent. I think we're up and ready to proceed.
Thank you. So we can go to the next slide when you're ready. Thanks. 275 Hillcrest Road is a corner property located at the northeast intersection of Hillcrest Road and Montague Place. This is behind Elmwood School. The property currently contains a detached house, originally a ranch-style bungalow built circa 1955. It was expanded through a two-story addition back in 2014. So the existing house, as you can see on screen, it features an integral garage and asphalt driveway that faces out to Hillcrest Road. Next slide, please. The plan on the left illustrates a hatched footprint. This is the footprint of the existing detached grade 2 house. And then overlaid over it is the proposed footprint. So that's the shaded area on the left and also on the right. So the proposed dwelling is located generally in the same location as the existing building. It's been adjusted for zoning compliance. It has generous setbacks and actually a slightly reduced lot coverage to help preserve soft landscaping. The existing grades will be maintained. The plan on the right provides some of the landscaping approach, which includes a reduction in the amount of existing hardscape. It retains and relocates most existing mature trees and adds additional cedar hedges and plantings. They'll also be removing the existing fencing in the front yard. Next slide, please. So the proposed new house would be 2 stories in height at 8.5 meters, clad in a mix of non-synthetic materials, including brick, wood, and fiberboard. The main elevation facing Hillcrest Road is anchored around an ornamental tree, connecting the building to its landscape. The upper level is set back from the ground floor. The driveway is relocated. It's now on Montague Place, where it leads to an integral 3-car garage. The design for the dwelling is a play of light and shadow. There's a use of contrast here to draw the eye to certain sections of the building, the lighter sections, to reduce the impact of the massing. So the integral garage is appropriately sited to limit its impact on both the dwelling and on the streetscape. We can go to the next slide. Applications for demolition and new construction in Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District are reviewed for consistency with the HCD plan's objectives, the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value, attributes, and meet the policies and guidelines of the plan, including demolition and relocation, additions and new construction, guidelines for new buildings, as well as the plan's landscape guidance. Next slide, please. Heritage staff have determined that the proposal is compliant and consistent with the policies and guidelines of the HCD plan, the standards and guidelines, and the provincial planning statement. We have no objection to the demolition of the existing dwelling, given its limited cultural heritage value. And considering the new proposed house is consistent with the guidelines of the plan. Just to touch on the existing building, the property received a score of 43 out of 100, and that was before there was a major renovation to the bungalow that was undertaken. The renovation did further diminish the property's contributions to the historic area. And so the new dwelling has incorporated design elements to achieve compliance with the guidelines for new construction. It has a more modest height, massing, and roofline that are compatible with the grade 1 buildings in the associated streetscape. And this slide's showing some of the nearby buildings, including a few grade 1s to the left and the right. We can go to the next slide. Thanks. Plans and other material related to the proposal were posted on the city's development application website on May 12th. Heritage Ottawa was notified. We also worked with the Rockcliffe Park Residents Association. They were circulated on a pre-application submission and participated with staff in a pre-application consultation with the meeting. We had the meeting back on March 18th. The Community Association was also invited to provide comments to the applicant on the formal circulation when it came in. Staff have not received further comments. Neighbors within 60 meters were notified by mail of the application. And we also had a notice sign posted on the subject property since mid-May, pardon me. Next slide, please. Heritage staff recommend approving the application with several conditions to ensure proper implementation of the proposal. We also recommend delegating minor design changes to the program manager and issuing the heritage permit with a 2-year expiry. Next slide, please. And that concludes the staff presentation. We're available for questions should you have any. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do have one delegation registered for this item, Rebecca Fernando of Plot Non-Plot Architects. And it seems that the registered delegate is not with us online. Seeing that the registered delegate is not online, are there any questions to staff on this item? Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. Going through the report, you mentioned that the 1994 renovations were done to designs by Julian Smith.
That's what our records show from the Heritage Survey form, that there was a previous reno and then there was another reno done, I believe, 2014.
Right.
And I don't know the designer of the 2014, but we would have that on file.
Right. So I only know one Julian Smith architect who's a renowned conservation architect and designer planner at many different levels. Wouldn't that be considered part of like the significance of the original building, that there's been sort of some work done by him on that building?
It certainly does. It's something that we look at and take into account. I think given the ranch style bungalow that existed already, I don't know that I was able to clearly identify the shifts and alterations that happened through that. And so I think when the changes happened in 2014, there was quite an impact on that cultural heritage value that maybe was there previously.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you check the permit drawings to see if there's any records from that document what Julian Smith did to that building?
No, I haven't seen any permits from that time period.
Okay. Will you possibly update the report just to point out the involvement of Julian Smith, considering he is a significant living architect, has had a dramatic impact on Ottawa and other places in Canada and the world. It would be of interest to future researchers as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for those questions and comments. We have been able to connect to Ms. Fernando. So if we can take this opportunity for you to have your delegation, we can admit you and we can have you have your 5 minutes. And we just need to unmute.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I was online. I don't know how to use this interface properly. Thanks, everybody. All I really wanted to say was I think that was Avery presenting the project, and I think it was presented sensitively. I honestly have no other comments other than it's just to reestablish a family and create a generational home for them in the Rockcliffe neighborhood. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for your comment and for your presence here this morning. Are there any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you so much for appearing here today. Are there any other questions for staff? Seeing none, is this item carried? Carried, thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to council on June 24th, 2026. Our next item is designation of 5 properties designed by James Strutt. We will proceed with a presentation by staff.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Today I'm here to present on the proposed designation of 5 properties designed by architect James Strutt under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Next slide, please. So to provide a bit of background, each of the subject properties were designed by Ottawa architect James Strutt, who I will speak to more in the next slide. Staff have been reviewing the city's heritage register for potential candidates for designation, Given that through the implementation of Bill 23, all properties listed on the register will be removed on January 1st, 2027, unless they are designated before that time. As part of the broader work plan to review these properties, staff undertook a thematic review of all listed properties designed by architect James Strutt. So staff have reviewed 12 of these properties and recommend moving forward with the designation of 5. Some of Strutt's other designs are already designated under Parts 4 or 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, or they are federally designated. Next slide, please. So just to provide a bit of information about the architect, James Strutt was a significant 20th century architect based in the Ottawa area. He was born in Pembroke in 1924, and he studied architecture at the University of Toronto after serving in the Royal Canadian Air Force in the Second World War. He established a successful practice in Ottawa and became well known for his experimentation with geometry, structure, and form, and for creating buildings that were both expressive and highly functional. Strutt's work frequently emphasized bold roof forms, rectilinear and unconventional geometry, controlled natural light, minimal ornamentation, thereby reflecting modernist principles while also remaining sensitive to site and material context. So he designed a number of modernist places of worship in Ottawa, several notable residences in Ottawa and Gatineau, as well as institutional buildings and multiple projects elsewhere in Canada. Many of his designs date from the 1950s and 60s, when Strutt was at the height of his influence and Ottawa's suburban landscape was rapidly expanding. In addition to his professional practice, Strutt taught architecture at Carleton University and served as the director at the School of Architecture in the late 1970s. He also received numerous professional honors. So the 5 properties recommended for designation were identified as significant examples that illustrate the range, evolution, and lasting impact of Strutt's contributions to modernist architecture in Ottawa. Next slide, please. So with that, the first property that we are recommending for designation today under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act is 1099 Maitland Avenue, the Trinity United Church. The property is located on the east side of Maitland Avenue, near the intersection of Maitland and Garfield in Ottawa's Copeland Park neighborhood. The church was constructed in 1963 as a purpose-built place of worship, serving a rapidly growing suburban community during the post-Second World War period of growth, at a time when church construction was also expanding alongside that residential growth. Next slide, please. So the property has design, historical, contextual value, meeting 4 of the 9 criteria for designation. In terms of its design value, the church is a unique architectural expression of a modernist place of worship in Ottawa, emphasizing rectilinear forms, minimal ornamentation, and expressive massing. A defining feature of the building is its large metal roof with decorative fins and minimal fenestration, giving it a sculptural and monumental form. Natural light is introduced into the building through concealed skylights in the roof. Historically, it contains value due to its ties with the rapid growth of the United Church in Ottawa's post-war suburbs, particularly in Copeland Park. And contextually, it also contains value as it functions as a landmark due to its proximity and siting along Maitland Avenue near the Highway 417. Next slide, please. Next, I will speak to 20 Qualicum Street. This property is a modernist single detached residence. It is known as the Borman House, named after the original owner. It was also designed by Strutt and constructed circa 1968. It's located in Ottawa's Qualicum Graham Park neighborhood, which is an area recognized for a concentration of architect-designed homes. Next slide, please. So the property meets 4 of the 9 criteria for designation. In terms of its design value, it is a rare and highly distinctive expression of a modernist residential building in Ottawa. It features an unusual C-shaped plan, which you can see here on the slide. It was actually designed around a mature maple tree, and it contains clear-story windows and a strong emphasis on natural light and indoor-outdoor integration. Historically and associatively, it contains value due to its direct linkage with the architect, and is considered one of his most successful residential designs, reflecting some of his geometric innovations, as well as integration with the broader site. And finally, it contains contextual value as it supports the character of the Qualicum Graham Park neighborhood, which is an area, as I mentioned, known for a high number of architect-designed modernist homes, and it contributes to a cohesive grouping of similar properties. Next slide, please. So thirdly, I will speak to 3955 Old Richmond Road, which is the Bell's Corners United Church. The property is located at the intersection of Old Richmond Road and Moody Drive in Bell's Corners. The church was constructed circa 1963 to serve a rapidly growing suburban congregation during the post-Second World War period, when United Church membership was expanding and new churches were being constructed across Ottawa's emerging suburbs. Next slide, please. The property has design, historical, and contextual value, meeting 3 criteria for designation. In terms of its design, it is a representative modernist A-frame church with minimal ornamentation and a modified gable roof that departs from traditional church architecture. Historically, it contains value as it reflects the expansion of suburban congregations in the post-war period and is, of course, associated with the work of the architect James Strutt. It represents one of a series of modernist churches he designed in Ottawa, and it's one of his most distinctive religious works. Next slide, please. So next, I will speak to the St. Tekel Haymanot Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church at 915 Merivale Road. The building was constructed in 1959 as the St. Peter's Anglican Church, but it has been used as the St. Tekel Haymanot Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church since 2003. The property is located in Carlington, near the intersection of Merivale Road and Leaside Avenue. It is a distinctive example of Strutt's later religious works. Next slide, please. And it meets 6 of the 9 criteria for designation. In terms of its design, it is a unique architectural expression of a modernist church, defined by its steeply pitched roof wall form, made up of linked hyperbolic paraboloids, creating a continuous sculptural concrete shell, which you can see here on the image on the left from shortly after its construction. It also demonstrates a high degree of technical innovation as an early Canadian example of this type of concrete shell construction. Historically and associatively, it contains value due to its links with Ottawa's post-war Anglican community, to the architect himself, and to Ottawa's Ethiopian community through its later use. And finally, contextually, it contains value as a prominent local landmark. Next slide, please. So lastly, I will speak to the building at 211 Cunningham Avenue, which is a single detached home constructed in 1955. The property is located in Alta Vista near the intersection of Cavendish Road and Cunningham Avenue. It is a distinctive example of Strutt's residential work. Next slide, please. So the property meets 3 of the 9 criteria for designation. In terms of its design, it is a distinctive modernist residence featuring a hexagonal plan, minimal ornamentation, and an emphasis on natural light organized around a concrete central fireplace. Historically, it's associated with Dr. James A. Gibson, who is a prominent Canadian academic, founding president of Brock University, and early Carleton University senior faculty member. It also has historical and associative value due to its connection with the architect. Next slide, please. So in terms of consultation, all owners were notified regarding the proposed designations. Staff have met with the representatives of Bell's Corners United Church as well as Trinity United Church to review the designation process and provide drafts of the statements of cultural heritage value. The remaining owners were notified by mail on March 20th with follow-up information provided on April 21st and later in May with information as well on how to participate at the committee meeting. Staff have offered to meet with all owners to address questions or concerns, and 2 owners have expressed concerns with the proposed designations. Next slide, please. So just to conclude, all 5 of the properties being considered have met at least 3 criteria for designation. Together, they represent the breadth of James Strutt's work, and they include both residential and places of worship. Designation would also improve heritage representation in a few underrepresented wards, particularly wards 8 and 16. And these properties would also contribute to Ottawa's modernist architectural heritage. So with that, thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the insightful and in-depth presentation, as well as an approach that is thematic, I think, which is unique for this committee around a specific architect. We did receive correspondence from Heritage Ottawa, as well as the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and we do have a registered delegate, Hunter McGill. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As you've seen in our written submission, Heritage Ottawa supports with a great deal of pleasure the staff's approach in the proposal for designations in bundling 5 works of a very distinctive Ottawa architect of the later modern period. And we can understand the pressures leading to this kind of an approach, but we think it's entirely suitable in this regard. Strutt, of course, as the staff presentation has noted, did a lot of very distinctive work in the National Capital Region. The examples that are proposed for your consideration for designation are very appropriate examples of his work. And the innovation that he adopted and developed through his practice and through the work that he did. Staff have also noted the interesting approach to geometry by Mr. Strutt in the approaches to design. So we fully support this approach, and we think it's very helpful to have a bundle, if I may describe them that way, of designs by this architect brought forward for your consideration at this time. Personally, I can't help but say that I hope that one of my personal favorite Strutt buildings, the Canadian Nurses Association, currently not in service, but located on Queen Elizabeth Drive, will also receive consideration for protection and preservation as opportunities present themselves. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments and observations, and I definitely am in alignment, full alignment about the idea of the theme that staff has brought forward, which I think is a very innovative approach towards designation. Are there any questions for Mr. McGill? Seeing none, thank you so much for your delegation. Questions to staff? Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. Not a question, but maybe a comment to sort of highlight the significance of James Strutt is that his own personal house, which is mentioned in your report in Gatineau, is considered one of the most important modern residences in the world. So it points to his significance, not just locally, but internationally. And it's something that's been continuing to develop to highlight his importance. Personally, when I first came to Ottawa, a number of his buildings are ones that always stood out to me as I drove around, even before I became involved in architecture. It's buildings that stood out with distinct character and significance. So I'm very pleased to see these buildings being designated and also recognizing James Strutt as an important architect in Ottawa, but also nationally and internationally. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for welcoming me to this committee. It's the first time I've had the opportunity to speak to this committee because we are starting to move into a mid-century designation area. So thank you for the tour of College Ward. 3 of the properties described in this report were College Ward, loved local landmarks. And I'm just to let you know sort of where the community stands on some of these designations. The Bells Corners United is comfortable. The Strutt home in Qualicum has been notified as well. The one proponent that has some concerns is for 4.2 item 2, which is 1099 Maitland Avenue. That's the Trinity United Church with the large metal roof. It is an absolutely stunning building, and certainly the congregation does not want to, undermine or dismiss the value of this building. But they have expressed concerns about where they are as a congregation. They describe their place right now as being a place of transition where they are working to, create more stability within the congregation and its finances and its community place as, these third spaces evolve. They are, they've been connected with city staff frequently and are very appreciative of that relationship with the heritage planners. But, in conversations with them and knowing what they offer to the local community, I think we might be seeing one of those circumstances whereby, of course, what you're considering at the table is narrow in terms of the building's eligibility or significance under your criteria and what the community purpose of the building is. So they are concerned right now, given where they're at, that a heritage designation may impose future costs or restrictions or obligations that might limit their ability to carry out this work. They're concerned about their financial uncertainty, rising operating costs, changing demographics, and they are looking at, opportunities to adapt the larger property to meet community needs. And so they are worried that this designation creates some restrictions around that. And they really want to be sure that the living community within the building is recognized as being every bit as valuable as the bricks and mortar that surround it and call it home, or that they call home. So, in the context of this conversation, we know that this could come up in another 5 years if it was not designated today. And the United Church congregation here would be asking for the deferral of that designation because they do believe in 5 years' time they would be much better prepared to be stewards of this heritage status. So they've asked that I make an appeal for flexibility around that property. I know that what they do in the community, they keep their costs extremely low or free for community groups. And we have few gathering places. It's a very residential area. And I don't need to tell you that in outer urban wards, our population is growing and our recreation facilities are old and very competitive. And this church has, made their large spaces available to lots of causes, including young people, the elderly, LGBTQ2SIA plus communities, and others. So they are just asking for a deferral if that is possible so that they can come back and do this with confidence. So I'm not sure what time I'm at, Chair. I have a couple questions for staff just to get some assurances for the community.
And was that a question directed to staff?
I just can't see my timer. I don't know how much time I have left in my 5 minutes, so I defer to you. Am I able to ask a couple questions here?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So can I just ask, so what costs and time are typically associated with heritage alteration permits? What assurances can you give to the community that that doesn't slow down what they're after?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor. So the majority of alterations would be reviewed under delegated authority by staff. Typically, those are reviewed within 5 to 10 business days. If an alteration is something like for like maintenance, a heritage permit would be $0. And there's also some flexibility as well regarding the attributes that are included in the statement of cultural heritage value. Right now in the draft statement of cultural heritage value, the interior of the building, parking lot, and any additions or outbuildings are not considered heritage attributes. So certainly we'd want to work with the congregation if they were looking to do adaptive reuse or a large addition. Just given the building's location on the site, it seems like there would be an opportunity to develop in the rear while maintaining the cultural heritage value of the existing building, which is very positive. But certainly we're open to working with the congregation to minimize timelines and provide as much certainty as possible.
And is there any education or support offered to those that are being designated so that they can understand how they can access those resources?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, on a case-by-case basis as the property owner is interested in that. So we always offer to meet with owners in advance of a report coming to this committee, but we are also committed to meeting with owners on an ongoing basis. And we've done that with other church congregations over the past couple of years who have had similar concerns to the congregation at Trinity United, where we can work with them to go through their planned list of changes and alterations they want to do, or they may envision in the future, and talk them through what potentially the requirements are or not. We can also work with them on financial incentives. The city does have a relatively new stream of our Heritage Property Grant Program that churches qualify for, where up to $75,000 is available, covering up to 75% of the work that's required to the building. So that would be eligible for any exterior work they would need to do to maintain their building. And then in addition, if they were to look at future redevelopment of portions of the site, they would be eligible to access the city's community improvement plan for heritage. So that offers a $500,000 tax increment grant. And that can be stacked with other community improvement plans, such as the Affordable Housing Community Improvement Program.
Okay, and for them that they're nervous that if they have to fix that roof to a certain standard, that they could end up either not being able to offer their community programming or become financially insolvent. Is what happens if an owner is unable to fix the key features under the designation, like the roof here?
We always work with property owners to find a solution that both retains the cultural heritage value of the building, but is also reasonable and realistic to what they can afford to undertake. I can honestly say that in my time here at the city, so going on almost 20 years, we've never been in a situation where, you know, somebody has proposed an alternative, let's say, due to financial restrictions that we haven't been able to find a solution with them. So particularly with church organizations, but also private homeowners, you know, everything has gotten more expensive in the world today, and we recognize that money is not limitless, and that there are other priorities for church organizations, which is part of why we instituted the new stream of the Heritage Property Grant Program, to recognize the costs associated with maintaining these large buildings, which often have, you know, for the 19th century ones, very decorative stonework or something like that. For these modernist ones, you know, big copper roofs or, you know, distinct structure. So I'm confident that should that situation arise, we would be able to find a solution that works with the property owner. And at the end of the day, those sorts of decisions can also come to council if it has to. So staff don't have the ability to refuse applications under the Ontario Heritage Act through delegation of authority. So if there was an instance where we couldn't come to an agreement, that item would come before this committee and city council for a decision.
Okay, thank you for those details. I don't have a vote today, but it was important to me to, you know, out of the 3 properties that were being put forward within this bundle, as it's been referred to, there's one community that is deeply concerned about the designation, and the other 2 did not express that to me. So I would love to have the consideration of the committee for those for that property. And I appreciate your time. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Quinn.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Councillor Johnson, for taking the time to come to us today and to share your community's concerns. But I think I'm going to take the opportunity to say that I will be supporting the recommendation to designate this property today, because I really do think that the concerns that the community has expressed the designation is not going to reflect negatively to the extent that they are concerned about, and staff have reminded us just exactly what on the property is designated, what elements, what part of the property is available for future development, and frankly, designation actually increases the ability of the owner to benefit from financial incentives that the city is making available to only properties designated under the Ontario Heritage Act. So believe me, we've heard, I've been on this committee for a number of years, and we have heard from representatives of congregations with similar concerns. So we do not, you know, take them lightly. And so, but I with confidence would send the message to your to that congregation to say that they shouldn't overreact to this proposal. It will not be a hindrance, in my opinion. So. But thank you to you and to staff for the great presentation on the Strutt houses. And I also will say that I grew up around the corner from a Strutt house. One of my best friends lived in it. And I was always amazed, even as a kid, what is it about this house? When you walk in the door, the way the spaces work, you know, when you're a child, you're not thinking about architecture, but just his design sense was truly amazing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Member Quinn. Are there any other questions on this item? Member Borns.
Does the tree still exist?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. Great question. Unfortunately, it did die about 15 years ago. It was removed and then it was replaced with another one that's been growing since around 2011, I believe.
The 1099 Maitland Avenue property appears to have been different than the others in terms of the consultation process. Can you, I mean, May 6th was the earliest consultation that's recorded. Was there anything prior to that?
Thank you, Chair. So we did reach out to all of the owners at the same time. We had been corresponding via email with the congregation since around late March, I believe. We provided the draft documents thereafter, but we didn't have a formal meeting with the congregation until that date. In May 6th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other hands raised. I just wanted to make a comment and also pose a question to staff. But I wanted to thank Member Quinn for her observations, as well as Councillor Johnson for appearing with us this morning and providing and relaying, obviously, the concerns of her residents. But I think it is important to reiterate what Member Quinn had noted. That Part 4 designation, what it does and what it doesn't do. So it does not freeze a property in time, in a sense, despite the fact that we're at Heritage Committee. It does not prohibit renovation, maintenance, or accessibility upgrades. It does create a heritage permit process, but those permits are assessed collaboratively, as we've heard. And I really want to thank staff for working with residents, with places of worship on this specific application, because it is important to work collaboratively with all partners. We know that fees for accessibility work can be waived, and staff work with owners to find solutions all the time. Designation is a partnership and it's not a prohibition. And that's why it's also very important that the city provides financial tools and incentives. And I know that we had just recently passed some financial incentive updates at this meeting. I just wanted to note that I did bring forward a motion a little while ago concerning the creation of a frequently asked question section for heritage and the new zoning bylaw earlier this year. And that was not because there was a problem with our heritage policies or with the work being done by staff. The motion came from a recurring issue that many councillors encounter, a disconnect between what residents believe heritage designation means and what it actually means in practice. Over the years, we hear concerns from residents who believe designation would prevent any changes to a property, while others believe designation would make even minor improvements prohibitively difficult or expensive. In many cases, neither perception reflects the reality of the process. What becomes clear is that there is a need for better public understanding of how heritage designation works, what protections it provides, what flexibility exists within the system, and the significant role heritage staff play in helping property owners navigate permits and approvals. That was the intent of the motion that came before the committee in April, to improve communication, provide clearer information to residents and property owners, and help build confidence in the heritage process. So I'm raising it again today because we are considering a heritage designation application, and some of the concerns we are hearing reflect the same misunderstandings that led to the motion in the first place. I think it's important to reiterate that heritage designation is not intended to freeze a property in time. Heritage staff work extensively with property owners to find practical solutions, facilitate approvals, and help balance conservation objectives with the realities of maintaining and improving buildings. Their work is often not fully understood by the public, despite being a critical part of the process. So my question to staff is, when committee considers the communication-focused heritage motion, when it did that in April, one of the goals was to improve public understanding of what heritage designation does and does not mean. Could staff briefly outline the resources and supports already available to property owners and residents, and whether the work underway will help address some of the misconceptions we continue to hear about designation, permits, costs, and the role of heritage staff play in guiding applicants through the process?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think in terms of the existing resources available to property owners whose properties are being proposed for designation, they do receive a personal letter from a heritage planner which outlines the proposal to designate, why staff believe that the property should be designated, and an invitation to meet to discuss the proposed designation and try to work through some concerns. Along with that letter, they receive a copy of what we call the Property Owner's Guide to Designation, which includes some high-level sort of FAQs about the heritage designation process and what it means for property owners. As it relates to the process from there, it really somewhat depends on the owner. We make every attempt to get in touch with the owner and meet with the owner. And as you can see for this report, the property owners were contacted multiple times by staff to ensure that, one, they knew, they understood the consequences of, or the implementation of a potential designation on their property, as well as had the opportunity to get all the information they need from staff, even if they disagree with us. And that happens quite often where we have an owner that, you know, doesn't want their property designated, but it is city staff's role to provide them with all of the information and the answers to their questions that they need. So that kind of happens on a case-by-case basis. I believe that the motion that was passed by this committee in April and the work that will come out of that will help bolster those existing resources. Our plan right now is to create an expanded FAQ document that would be complementary or potentially replace the existing Property Owner's Guide to Designation. I think it could get posted on the city's website in addition to being shared with individual property owners as time permits. And then one of the other things I think the team is interested in and would like to focus a bit more on is the public education aspect around heritage designation. So not necessarily just with individual owners, but with community associations and with the broader public around what heritage designation truly is and what it means for owners.
Thank you so much. Well, I do appreciate those comments, and I do appreciate the work that's being undertaken on those frequently asked questions. And I continue to really keep in high regard the work of staff to work diligently to engage with all owners on all applications. I think it's very important, and the collaborative element needs to be underlined. I also want to also note that like many other members around this table, I'm very impressed with the approach that has been taken here, a thematic application that protects the work of a wonderful and a great architect. James Strutt spent his career thinking about how buildings should serve people, how they should respond to the land, create community, and endure. And I think it's wonderful that we have the opportunity today to ensure that 5 of his finest creations are recognized, protected, and preserved. So I don't see any other hands raised. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you so much. This item will be submitted to council on June 24th, 2026. The next item for consideration by the committee is designation of 60 Fairmont Avenue. We do have a presentation from staff.
Good morning. I'm here to present on the designation of 60 Fairmont Avenue under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Before I start, just wanted to point out my colleague Emily Cuggy is here as well. She's one of the Built Heritage Research Coordinators with the city who put together the bulk of the research and analysis for this designation. And next slide, please. So 60 Fairmont Avenue, this is a property located in Hintonburg, south of Wellington Street West by about a block. The property contains a 3-story apartment building constructed in 1931, designed in a Edwardian classicist style, which was very popular in Ontario in the early decades of the 20th century. So Fairmont Court defines and maintains Hintonburg's visual character in the area south of Wellington Street West. which is home to many brick-clad vernacular and Edwardian classicist buildings such as this. And next slide, please. So just to point out a number of the kind of interesting design features on this building, it does feature a central bay with a brick parapet, voussoir, stained glass windows, and some half timbering present within those windows, as well as a central entrance with an entablature that's flanked by two 3-story bays on the left and right hand side. And next slide, please. So Fairmont Court has historical value, one for its role in Hintonburg's growth as a sort of streetcar suburb, the second kind of main period of growth in Hintonburg, and as well as the development of that area south of Wellington Street West as a popular neighborhood for civil servants and white-collar workers kind of in the early to mid-20th century. The property is also associated with prominent local builder, Joseph Edward Minette. He was a very notable builder in Ottawa in this period, primarily worked on a lot of institutional and religious buildings, but this is one of the residential buildings that we know he built, and it is possible that he kind of informally at least worked as the designer of this building as well. And next slide, please. So this property has cultural heritage value for its design, associative, and contextual values. It meets 5 of the 9 criteria for designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And on the screen, you can just see a quick selection of some of the notable heritage attributes. This list is a bit more extensive in the actual designation, but as we talked about earlier, it does speak to things like the central entrance, the recessed central bay, et cetera. And then quickly, just to note in terms of consultation, we have reached out to the property owner. We provided them with 3 letters starting in about April, but we have not heard back to date from the property owner. The ward councillor was also notified of this designation. So that concludes the presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I believe there is a delegation from Linda Hote.
Good morning, and thank you. I'm speaking sort of with my Hintonburg hat on, but I think there's an interesting footnote to this designation that you might be interested in. I don't know whether you noticed when you did land registry research that the city of Ottawa owned this building at one time. It turns out, I didn't know why, I kind of wondered why, and then they sold it to the NCC, well, transferred it. I think it was a land swap because there wasn't a lot of money involved. I thought, what is this? And a friend of mine sent me a poster recently. It was a Save the Hintonburg Park poster. So that led me to the newspaper articles. Turns out the city had acquired, I knew the city had acquired the park from the church in 1972, 73. But, and apparently they decided to build an arena on the land, but they needed parking. So they started buying up properties to the south of the park, including 60 Fairmont and some properties on St. Francis Street. When the community got wind of this, they were pretty upset. And according to the newspaper, there was quite a lot of controversy, and several aldermen, as they were then called, they had to change their position. So eventually the community won. The park was saved. They built a community center, which is there now, because they could do a center and retain most of the park. So 60 Fairmont was saved from demolition for a parking lot by the community of Hintonburg, where I did not live. I did live, but I didn't know anything about it at the time. So I thought you should know that. The city has interesting little highlights, and I was going to pass that along to you. I can also send it to you in electronic form, because the newspaper article isn't fully laid out there, but I think it's a little footnote you should know about. I don't know whether you have any questions, because I don't think I know more about it than I have told you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's very informative and a wonderful addition to the record.
What year was that?
1973, I think it was 73, 74, I can't remember when the news. It was quite a battle that took place in 1973. It was before the community center was built, obviously, because they were planning to build an arena, which of course it was eventually built where the Tom Brown Arena is now. But it took a while to find a place for the arena.
Well, thank you so much for that additional information. Much appreciated. We always appreciate your contributions, Linda, as well as the contributions of Heritage Ottawa, which also submitted correspondence on this file. Are there any questions to staff? Seeing none, is this item carried? Carried. Thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to council on June 24th, 2026. That concludes the regular substantive items that we had on the agenda. That's right. Oh, of course. That's a large item. 4.6 was held. Can we have a presentation from staff?
Good morning again, Chair and members of committee. I'll be presenting on the proposed adoption of a new plan for the Bank Street Heritage Conservation District. Next slide, please. So to provide a bit of background, the district has actually been designated as an HCD since 2000. At the time of its designation, an HCD plan was not required to be adopted under the Ontario Heritage Act. And so staff have been using the guidelines in the supporting study that was created before the plan, known as the Central Area West Study and Plan, to inform decision-making for heritage permits. The Ontario Heritage Act has since been revised to require plans for HCDs. And so in response to this and from council direction from 2024, staff have been moving forward with creating a plan for the district. The new plan is intended to set clear expectations for the heritage permit process and provide more certainty for owners and applicants. Next slide, please. So in terms of the cultural heritage value of the district, it reflects Ottawa as both a symbolic capital and working city, given its location at the confluence of the parliamentary precinct and Centertown. Its cultural heritage value is tied to the history of early land transactions in Bytown and Ottawa, the Rideau Canal construction, and proximity to Parliament Hill. It developed as a major commercial and transportation corridor, which was reinforced by the streetcar from the 1880s until the 1950s. It features a cohesive collection of late 19th and early 20th century commercial buildings with strong craftsmanship. And it also includes ties to Ottawa's early Chinese community and Centertown's commercial life. Next slide, please. So staff reviewed the existing study that was completed to assess changes since the designation, including any alterations or demolition that occurred. Properties were reclassified as contributing or non-contributing from the previous grades 1 through 4 scores, and new survey forms were prepared for the properties. So this is a very small district and only includes 21 properties. And of those, 16 have been deemed contributing and 5 non-contributing. No changes to the boundary of the district are proposed. However, a small number of reclassifications occurred, namely 215 Slater Street, which had since been redeveloped, 140 Bank Street, also known as Snyder Plaza, a building that existed at the time of the study has been demolished. And then finally 208 Slater, which in staff's opinion had been significantly altered and no longer met the threshold to be a contributing building. Next slide, please. The work that has taken place forms the basis for the proposed HCD plan and leads into this recommendation that the Built Heritage Committee recommend that Council adopt the Bank Street HCD plan by bylaw. Next slide, please. So the HCD plan has been prepared in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. It includes a statement of objectives, a statement of cultural heritage value, description of heritage attributes, as well as policies and guidelines, and a description of alterations that do not require a heritage permit. Next slide, please. More specifically, the plan contains policies and guidelines on conservation and repair, alterations, additions, new construction, demolition and relocation, public realm and landscaping, and heritage interpretation. Next slide, please. So given the small number of properties within the district, staff focused on targeted engagement. All property owners received a mail out in February 2026 with information about the project as well as how to access the draft plan. Property owners also received a mail out in May with information about how to access the final draft and information about attending the Built Heritage Committee meeting. Staff met with the Centertown BIA on March 10th, 2026. As well as with the Centertown Community Association's Heritage Committee on April 30th. Staff undertook targeted outreach to the development community in the area, which resulted in one meeting. Next slide, please. The draft plan includes a high-level overview of Indigenous history based on available secondary sources and from a non-Indigenous perspective. Indigenous engagement was initiated to seek input and improve representation of Indigenous history in the district. Notification letters were sent in March 2026, and the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation expressed interest in engagement. Staff met with the AOPFN in May 2026 to review the draft and discuss opportunities for continued collaboration. So this led to the inclusion of a heritage interpretation section in the plan, which provides high-level guidance encouraging interpretation approaches to better reflect Indigenous history and presence, as well as recommendation 2, which supports further Indigenous-led work. Next slide, please. So recognizing the limitations of the plan and the importance of documenting the full history within the broader area, staff are proposing to continue engagement with Indigenous communities following adoption of the HCD plan. And this direction is reflected in the recommendation as shown on the slide. If both recommendations are passed, the next steps will be the registration of the bylaw, which would occur in July 2026, as well as the 30-day appeal period. And so that concludes staff's presentation. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We did receive correspondence from Heritage Ottawa. We have no delegations. Councillor Troster has questions to staff.
To be clear, nothing's changing. This was already a designated area. You just had to put this together.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's currently designated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions on this item. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to council on June 24th, 2026. Now that was the final substantive item on the regular agenda. We have no in-camera items. Notices of motions. Are there any notices? Seeing, Member Borns. For what purpose?
To discuss the acquisition of a property.
We don't have any item on the agenda that focuses on that.
Okay, so I will move something for next week, next meeting.
Okay. Are there any other notices of motion? Seeing none, yeah, we're going to get to it. Inquiries, are there any inquiries? Seeing none, other business. So staff are requesting that this item be added to today's Built Heritage Committee agenda under other business, and that it would be advanced to the June 10th, 2026 meeting of City Council following consideration by the Built Heritage Committee to ensure that the appropriate protections are in place at the earliest opportunity. Councillor Leeper will read in the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. New business. This is with respect to the designation of 575 Island Park Crescent under Part 4 of the Act. Whereas a demolition permit application under the Ontario Building Code Act and an application under the Demolition Control Bylaw have been submitted for the property at 575 Island Park Crescent, and whereas the city's official plan directs the immediate review and consideration of properties for designation that are threatened with demolition, and whereas staff have evaluated the property at 575 Island Park Crescent against Ontario Regulation 0906 and determined that it meets 4 of the 9 criteria and merits protection through designation under Part 4 of the Act, and whereas City Council has directed Heritage Planning staff to undertake a Heritage Conservation District study for the area of Island Park Drive within which this property is located, whereas advancing this report to the June 10th, 2026 meeting of council following consideration by Built Heritage Committee ensures the appropriate protections are in place at the earliest opportunity. Therefore, be it resolved that Built Heritage Committee waive the rules of procedure to consider the designation of 575 Island Park Drive at the June 9th, 2026 Built Heritage Committee meeting, and be it further resolved that the report rise to the June 10th, 2026 meeting of council for consideration.
Thank you so much. Is the motion carried? Carried. Thank you so much. There is a presentation on staff on this item. And we are just working on getting that up. Okay, so we do have the presentation up, so we can proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair, members of committee. So a bit of background just to start. So this property was listed on the city's Heritage Register in 2019. In 2024, in response to some of the changes to the Heritage Act through Bill 23, the property was strategically removed from the register. So today it's not currently listed and has no interim demolition protection. And this committee will remember this time last year, City Council directed Heritage Planning staff to undertake a Heritage Conservation District study for the Island Park area within which this property is located. If we go to the next slide. This is the location of the property at 575 Island Park Crescent. It's at the corner of Island Park Crescent and Geneva Street. And Island Park Crescent is just one street in from Island Park Drive. This property is currently owned by the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and it has functioned as their ambassador's residence since 1993. Since this property is currently vacant, Global Affairs Canada has confirmed that the property does not have diplomatic status. The owner wishes to build a new ambassador's residence on the property and have therefore submitted a demolition permit application under the building code. At this point, however, there are no designs or plans for a replacement building. So the owner, through their agent, has submitted a demolition control application to proceed with demolition without any plans. In response to those demolition applications, as directed by the city's official plan policies to immediately consider properties threatened with demolition for designation, staff have completed our review of the property against criteria 0906 and believe it meets 4 of the 9 criteria. Next slide, please. So constructed in 1927, 575 Island Park Crescent is representative of the Georgian Revival style, residence built during the interwar period in Ontario. It reflects key characteristics of the style, including symmetrical front facade, a central entrance decorated with classical details, brick cladding and coins, large step brick chimneys, and symmetrically spaced multi-pane sash windows. The building has had several additions over time on its west side, but the original structure remains largely intact. On the next slide, please. As an early residence on the Island Park driveway, 575 Island Park Crescent has historical value tied to themes of suburban growth in Ottawa and development of the national capital. So this sort of the middle portion on the map there, it's a little small, but between Wellington West, Richmond Road to Adena Street, this section was developed by Hampton Park Limited, and they were the first developer in the area to enter into restrictive covenants with the Ottawa Improvement Commission. So that was the predecessor to the NCC, who planned and built this scenic driveway as part of their beautification efforts to emphasize Ottawa's role as the capital. The development of this section in particular of the driveway played a key role in sparking subsequent development along the route to the north and to nearby streets. This property also reflects the typical influential figures in Ottawa's history who resided on the driveway. And that's demonstrated by the first 2 owners of the house, Daniel B. Rochester and Harold Vale, who were both prominent and successful in Ottawa's business community. Next slide. So 575 Island Park Crescent has contextual value as it illustrates Ottawa's role as the national capital, where diplomatic missions often strategically repurpose historic properties for their architecture and their location to enhance their visibility and influence. And this is evident through several properties along Island Park Drive, but also throughout Ottawa as well. The building maintains and supports the character of the residential properties along Island Park Drive, which is a direct result of the application of restrictive covenants through the Ottawa Improvement Commission between 1921 and 1922 for 99 years. These covenants required lots to have one residential building with approved designs, as well as public realm features, including consistent setbacks, rear laneways, and gateways that together create a cohesive appearance on the extent of the driveway, and that's evident in this property as well. 575 Island Park Crescent is also historically linked to its surroundings as an early residence located on the original path of the Island Park driveway. So the driveway was rerouted to the current path we know today to accommodate the widening of Highway 417 and the construction of the off-ramp in the implementation of the 1950s Grey Bear Plan and reorganization of the rail and road network in the National Capital Region. If we go to the next slide. So staff have been discussing the cultural heritage value of this property for well over a year. We've met with the owner on several occasions to discuss the embassy's needs and concerns. A key issue for the owner being condition. The applicant provided several reports, a designated substance report and a structural engineer's report that were shared with staff, which both recommended demolition of the building. However, in reviewing these reports with our colleagues in Building Code Services, these reports identified only limited designated substances, some water damage, and mold, as well as cosmetic and aesthetic concerns. They did not identify major structural deficiencies. And as a result, with the consent of the owner, Heritage Planning commissioned a second report by John Cook and Associates, a heritage engineer. And their report found that the condition issues were limited to the northwest additions, while the original portion of the building could be retained with some remediation and repairs and some updates as well. And if we go to the next slide to conclude, based on the information in the Heritage Engineer's report, Heritage staff are not in a position to support demolition in its entirety. We have drafted the statement of value that's attached to the report with the understanding that the building's additions could be removed. We've also offered to work with the owner on ways to sensitively incorporate and rehabilitate the building or portions of the building into a new residence that meets the embassy's needs. Unfortunately, I think at this point we've reached a bit of an impasse. And so staff are recommending that council issue a notice of intention to designate under Part 4 to recognize its cultural heritage value and prevent its demolition. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. We did receive correspondence from legal counsel for the owner, and we do have a delegation. So we have Ambassador Ebebe of the Ethiopian Embassy, who is joining us today. Thank you for joining us at committee today, and you do have 5 minutes for your delegation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Built Heritage Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today regarding the proposed heritage designation of the 575 Island Park Crescent, which is serving as our residence. My embassy holds deep respect for Canada's heritage and cultural values, as well as for the unique character of the Island Park Crescent. We recognize the importance of preserving the historical identity of Ottawa's neighborhood and have approached this matter with that principle firmly in mind. For the past 18 months, the embassy has worked closely and in good faith with the city's heritage officials to explore solutions that would balance heritage considerations with the realities of the property. Throughout this process, our objective has been to find a practical and responsible path forward. Unfortunately, the condition of the building presents a challenge that cannot be overlooked. The house has not received a level of maintenance and investment necessary to preserve its integrity over 30 years. I repeat this. The residence has not received the level of maintenance and investment necessary to preserve its integrity over the past 30 years. As a result, it has deteriorated significantly and now suffers from severe deficiencies. Professional assessment indicate that the building is structurally unsound and presents substantial concerns regarding its long-term safety and stability. In addition, the property contains designated substances that poses serious health, environmental, and safety challenges. Any effort to preserve the structure would require extensive remediation and construction, creating a significant risk and a cost. These realities cannot be ignored when evaluating the future of the property. When considered collectively, the structural deterioration, environmental concerns, and remediation requirements render the preservation of the existing building economically unviable. The scale of intervention necessary would require replacing a substantial portion of the structure itself. At that point, one must ask whether the process would truly preserve a heritage building or merely retain a fragment of structure whose original integrity has already been lost. While we do not believe the current building can be responsibly preserved, we remain committed to preserving the character of the site. To that end, the embassy is prepared to construct a replacement building that closely reflects the appearance, scale, and architectural character of the existing residence. This commitment stems from our respect for the heritage values of Canada and the residents of the Island Park Crescent specifically. We believe this approach offers a balanced solution, one that maintains streetscape of and historical character of the neighborhood while addressing legitimate concerns relating to safety, environmental responsibility, and long-term sustainability. I would also respectfully ask the committee to consider the broader context of this application. Canada and Ethiopia have enjoyed more than 60 years of strong diplomatic relations built on friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect. Those ties are reflected in Ottawa's vibrant Ethiopian community, whose members have made important contribution to the social, cultural, and economic life of the city. Ethiopian athletes have also become a cherished part of Ottawa's sporting landscape, consistently excelling in the Ottawa Tamarack Marathon and contributing to an event that has become a source of pride for the city. The embassy is proud to these connections and remain committed to strengthening the bonds between our two countries and the communities. We therefore respectfully ask the committee to recognize that undeniable conditions of the property and the embassy's demonstrated commitment to finding a constructive solution. We have engaged in good faith for the past 18 months. We have listened to the concerns, we have proposed a meaningful compromise, and we have committed ourselves to preserve the architectural character of this site through a carefully designed replacement building that reflects the heritage values cherished by this community. By supporting this approach, the committee can help preserve what truly matters, the character and the legacy of the neighborhood, while ensuring safety, sustainability, and a respectful outcome for all concerned. Thank you for your consideration, and I would like to answer if there are any questions.
Thank you so much for appearing today, Your Excellency. And you do have a question from Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Chair, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for the presentation today. It's good to meet your acquaintance. The city staff have described this as being a impasse. Sorry, bear with me. I'm getting some feedback. There we go. The city staff have said that there are expert opinions that they have that some of this building can be retained and adapted and reused, and that is what they are asking this committee and council to preserve the room for through providing the protection. Is it your assertion that there is no possibility of doing an adaptive reuse of any of this structure?
Thank you, Councillor. This is what we have been discussing with the city officials. As I said, due to the fact that there is a cultural difference between the housing conditions in Ethiopia and in here. We don't have that strong culture tradition of continuous maintenance of buildings, because in our part of the world we have very concrete houses, and that doesn't usually require that continuous maintenances. Whereas this, the house, the one we have has mostly of wooden structures and bodies, which requires continuous maintenance. Unfortunately, since we own the property, we haven't made a significant investment on this property, so that it has deteriorated the condition of the status of the building. This is merely unfortunate, I understand, and then it has rendered the property beyond repair now. And now, again, we're coming with a strong compromise that we are going to build a more or less a local-like building in that space, making it more economical, making it environmentally friendly, and then the level of mold that was seen in the building is not something that we can tell it in a short expressions. And structurally, there are certain, there is a proven experts who have visited, independent expert engineers visited, and then come up with the conclusion that this is not viable to maintain the building. So I believe maintaining heritage doesn't necessarily mean only keeping all the things at whatever expenses. It should contain the values, the beauties, at the same time the environmental and health concerns should be addressed in this building.
Your Excellency, I appreciate the reply. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other hands raised, so thank you so much for appearing before the committee this morning, Your Excellency. We appreciate your presence here this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this point, questions to staff. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Chair. So to staff, how do you respond to the ambassador's assertion that the building is beyond saving?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair. I think, we've had a second opinion completed, as I mentioned in the presentation, from a heritage engineer, who his conclusions resulted in, his opinion was that the building could be retained, that at least the original portion could be retained. And I think based on that, that would be staff's opinion as well.
If this committee and then council were to support sort of the immediate notice of intention to designate, what are the off-ramps that remain over the course of this process as discussions continue with the embassy?
Thank you, Chair. So if the notice of intention were to be issued and council issued that notice, there would be a 30-day objection period, which the property owner could object through that process. So there would be an off-ramp through that process to either withdraw or modify the statement of value. So that would be the main off-ramp.
If this committee and then subsequently tomorrow council does not designate, there is an application for demolition. Is there any way to pause that clock on the application for demolition?
So there is an application, a formal application for demolition control and a demolition permit application. We have been working with the owner, so that application, the demolition control application, has been on hold. But I would say that these processes, the heritage designation process they're not tied. So that process could become active. The demolition control application could become active at any point. And then the demolition permit could be granted.
And with an understanding that city heritage staff are interested in the preservation of this building, and that you are at what you've called an impasse, I would suggest that it's likely that the application for a demolition permit could start to proceed again post haste on the part with the embassy's at the embassy's request. So I think it is important that we do this designation, we provide it with this protection so that the building isn't demolished in the near term. And there are, it will give us some time to have negotiations and discussions with everyone understanding what the stakes are. So I appreciate staff's work on this. I appreciate the engagement that you've had with my office and with residents since that application for demolition first came up. So thank you. And colleagues, I hope that you will support this as a way to sort of immediately provide some needed protection while we continue to discuss the future of this building, which is so clearly critical to the future success of what will be the Island Park Heritage Conservation District.
Thank you so much for those comments. Councilor Leeper, I have to occur. I think that the issue before us is not whether this building needs work. It does. The issue is whether the heritage case for retention is sufficient to warrant putting the demolition process through a proper oversight mechanism, which is a heritage permit process. Based on staff's evaluation and an independent peer review by a respected heritage engineering firm, the answer is yes. The 1927 original structure is structurally sound, and that's our understanding from the report. The problems identified are consistent with deferred maintenance, not a building that cannot be saved. So colleagues, I do concur with the ward councillor, with Councillor Leeper, that the City of Ottawa's official plan is unambiguous. When a property of cultural heritage value is threatened with demolition, the city shall immediately consider designation. That language, shall immediately consider, was written for exactly this type of situation. We have a staff recommendation, we have an independent structural peer review, and we have a building that has stood on Island Park for nearly a century, representing some of the best urban planning ambitions of the city's early history. Issuing this notice of intention to designate is the right thing to do. It does not prevent rehabilitation. It does not prevent sensitive redevelopment. It ensures that before anything irreversible happens to this place, there is a proper process with heritage expertise at the table. I also urge committee to support this recommendation. Are there any other questions to staff or comments? Seeing none, is this item carried? Carried. Thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to council on June 10th, 2026. And since this is, I guess, new business or other business, if you could just permit me to just provide a little bit of commentary to Councillor Bourne's request. We know that in our province, municipal council meetings and committee meetings must be open to the public by default, but there can be closed for in-camera private considerations under specific limited exceptions defined in Section 239 of the Municipal Act. And these exceptions primarily safeguard personal privacy, litigation strategy, labor negotiations, and confidential negotiations. One of the key legal requirements that can be considered is property matters, which you raised, the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. But it's important to note that as a committee or as council, we do have to adhere to strict procedural rules before, during, and after an in-camera session. There needs to be a public resolution before moving in camera. Council or the committee must pass a public resolution stating they are holding a closed meeting and the general nature of the matter being considered. This is obviously important, and I'm pleased that you will be having at least some discussions about how you'll go forward with the next meeting. Just thought that we should raise that for clarification. On adjournment. We're adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Sorry,
The next meeting.
Mr. Chair, I had my hand up. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I did not see that.
That's okay. Just to say, under other business, I bring us back to a letter that we all received from I think it was co-signed by residents of Centertown with regard to an item that came before us at our last meeting, 267 O'Connor Street. It was, very, I thought quite a serious letter, and where the authors expressed deep concern about the fact that their contributions to the public consultation process didn't seem to have penetrated beyond the initial submission. It didn't go to the destination it was supposed to go to, etc. And I just feel that it raised some questions for me. Who organized the public consultation? Was it the owner? Was it FOTAN? Was it the city? What is the process when a member of the community formally submits their opinion about a proposal that is, integral to their community? Who decides where it goes? And I am interested in if the city could provide us not immediately, but within the next while, a little bit of reassurance, I think, for ourselves and also for members of the community who participate in good faith in these processes.
Well, thank you for raising that, and I'm certain we have great professional heritage staff, and I'm certain that they will be able to answer your question directly. So I'm certain they're taking notes and will respond to your question in short order.
Thank you. I just didn't want that to slip away. That seemed
sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
At this point, we are adjourned. The next meeting of the Built Heritage Committee will be held on Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. Thank you so much, everybody.